Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank you for being given the opportunities as a candidate for representative mahasiswa berprestasi or Mawapres at the BINUS Business School level. Is it great to see you all? My name is Alfarizi from Department of Management, BINUS Online Learning, BINUS University. In this presentation, we would like to discuss about literature review of climate change and Indonesia SDGs strategy issue in a multidisciplinary perspective. Find opportunity, a diamond drowning in the mute of the church. Before present our research paper, I apologize if my delivery of this presentation is not good because I'm still learning more in English, especially in vocabulary and pronunciation part. So please understand. Thank you. Okay. There is no country without environmental problems. Almost all countries in the world are experiencing this problem, which is quite difficult to solve. Environmental change is the consequence of harmful atmospheric damage that adversely affect individual life activities. And environmental change could affect the activities of the economic sector, especially in the agriculture and plantation sector. In addition, environmental change have also triggered an increase in disease case due to irregular climate cycle, including the current pandemics, namely the COVID-19 pandemics. Environmental change also affect the potential for disaster event to occur. Considering the consequence of hunting in the world disaster event information base or international disaster database, there are the 3,145 catastrophic events that fall into the world disaster class. Around 60% of these disaster events are catastrophic events due to exogenous environmental events such as floods, the season, forest fires, strong winds of storm, avalanches, high tsunamis, and spread of infection. Development is a process of change for the better to plan effort. Another definition states development as the business of series of planet growth and change effort that are constantly carried out by a nation, state, and governments towards modernity in the context of nation building. As time goes by and the start of the concept and application of ecology in every order of life. The development has undergone several paradigm shifts, starting from being oriented towards economic growth with GNP or gross national products to the emergence of ideas that integrate economic growth, where community participation and environmental protection known as a sustainable development paradigm. Indonesia was also affected under the ratification of the Paris Agreement. Indonesia must also incorporate the paradigm of sustainable development, economic growth with oriented development tends to utilize natural resource availability without paying attention to the society environment aspect. As a result, environmental damage and pollution and increasingly common, the impacts that can be detrimental of this human life. In this characterized by change in the physical condition of the Earth atmosphere that cause change in weather over of a long period of time, such a uneven distribution of rainfall, climate change is caused by an increased greenhouse gas or GHG emission that cover the Earth and prevent the sun's rays from being reflected back to atmosphere by the Earth. Greenhouse gas component consists of carbon dioxide, methane, nitrogen oxides, sulfur oxides, chlorofluorocarbon, and hydrofluorocarbon caused by various activities of the Earth's surface. Climate change is recognized as a critical threat of our society and national development in the coming decades. This can hinder Indonesia's achievement in the SDG Sustainable Development Committee in that have been mutual agreement. In addition to the COVID-19 pandemics, climate change can be the economic challenge in the medium to long term. It is a major concern for many countries in the world. The issue of climate change is an increase in the Earth temperature by the 2.5 to 4.7 degrees Celsius in 2100 due to increase the greenhouse gas. However, climate change, which always has a negative connotation, is not always detrimental. In a certain location and condition, it can even be beneficial. One of them in the increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide or CO2 in the atmosphere. This condition provides an opportunity for plant in increased dry matter production so that it can be used for compensate for the negative effect of high temperature stress, drought, inundation, and salination. One of the results of research conducts on ligaments with the simulation of high temperature stress and through indicated on an increase in CO2 concentration was able to eliminate the negative effect in exciting environmental stress. In addition, the adoption of life and the implementation of climate change resilience policy make cost saving and health improvement. Mitigation of climate change in various sectors, including housing, transport, and energy, has meant a co-benefit lending for substantial health improvement and reduce health risks. This research will review climate change in the midst of Indonesia SDGs-based development for various multidisciplinary perspective and well of look for opportunities for adoption and mitigation in the midst of the multitude of the threat of climate change. Based on the above goal, several formulations of the problem in the research were formulated, namely one, how is the climate change and Indonesia SDGs from the perspective of agamistis, like higher education, public health, and social culture. And two, what are the multidisciplinary strategy of Indonesia SDGs in the issue of climate change? According to the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, or APCC, the definition of climate change in the long-term shift in the statistic of the winter, including the average. For example, is include over the normal climatic change expected value of average temperature and the normal climatic change. Normal climatic change expected value of average temperature and precipitation or give place and time for year from one decade to the next. Climate change in any change in climate at the certainly time interval, whether caused by natural events or due to human activities, are anthropogenic. The observed change in the Earth climate since the early 20th century are driven primarily by human activities. In particular, the burning of fossil fuels will increase the level of heat-trapping greenhouse gas in the Earth's atmosphere. There will be increased the Earth African surface temperature. This increase in the temperature caused by human is usually referred to as global warming. Natural processes can also contribute to climate change, including internal variability. Ocean cyclopattern such as El Nino, La Nina, and Pacific Desodal oscillation, and external force such as volcanic activity, change in the sun's energy output, variance in the Earth orbit, an example of climate change for natural process. The Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, are also known as the global goals, adopted by the United Nations in 2015 as a universal call for action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure by the 2030 all people enjoy peace and prosperity. The United Nations and the United Nations Development Programme, or UNDP, define the SDGs as the set of universal sustainable development goals, target, and indicators for all the world. Development Economics Research, Ramirez, states the definition of the Sustainable Development Goals in the set of the global goals for equity and equitable and sustainable health at the very level, from the planet biosphere to local communities. The goal is to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure there are people enjoy peace and prosperity now and in the future. The goals and objectives of the SDGs are integrated and comprehensive, global in nature, and universally applicable, taking into account national realities of different capacities, and level of development, expecting each country national policy and priorities. Therefore, the role of the state is very important in approaching and formulating of comprehensive strategy between economic development, social inclusion, and environmental sustainability, while still prioritizing national characteristics and priorities. The SDGs, including 17 goals and 169 targets, apply from 2016 to 2030. The SDGs cover comprehensive development issue and target the complete complication of each of the exciting goals and target. The SMAC is universal, giving every country a balance of roles with development country, developing country, or less developed country, or to fully contribute. Effort to achieve the goals and the objective of the SDGs must provide benefit overall, no one left behind. Multidisciplinary perspective, according to UNESCO, EBA, is a perspective that involves at least two academic disciplines to solve a particular problem together. Multidisciplinary perspective in the thinking approach involving drawing critically for various disciplines to redefine the problem beyond normal limits and reach solution based understanding new about complex situation. This study is a literature review method with the role of research looking for and combining the essence and analysis facts for the scientific source according to valid and accurate criteria. Literature studies research previously published material and report new facts and analysis. This method is carried out in order to provide a broad overview of the multidisciplinary view in analyzing the phenomenon of climate change and Indonesia SDGs issue, as well as Indonesia multidisciplinary SDGs development strategy in climate change issue. This research was conducted by utilizing literature study, formal data, and also various research source. Literature in the study came from a journal obtained through the Google Scholar. The material has been collected with by use as descriptive analysis material, which will be used to answer the formulation of research problem. In collection, the literature will be used of data source in this study. A screening stage will be applied. The publication screening requirements are complete based on the literature eligibility criteria that have been described, with screening of the human percent data in the form of incoming publication with predetermined keyword will be filtered using the following condition: A, article and abstract in English and Indonesia. B, is the journal Sinta accredited international with minimum reputation, and C, does the people meet the inclusion criteria. Inclusion criteria for the research in the literature identification stage. This research must be the literature criteria that focus on discussing climate change and Indonesia SDGs from the perspective of agribusiness, higher education, public health, and social culture. Okay. Thus, the agribusiness sector has a very significant contribution for the achievement of the target and objective of the Sustainable Development Goals or SDGs program, namely for the welfare of human and planet health. Therefore, agriculture is a landing sector for this program. The important role of the agriculture is a leading factor for this program. The important role of the agriculture sector in the SDGs program can be seen from the 17 goals and 169 targets that focus on effort to eradicate poverty and hunger, in addition to paying attention to health, education, gender inequality, and environmental sustainable issues. Towards in 2030, CSDGs target, Indonesia is working hard to reduce the national poverty rates agriculture. Until 2020, the achievements of agricultural performance can be seen together. There are self-sufficiency and there are no large imports of rice, chili, safflows, and corn for animal feeds. The next result is poverty index decreasing every year. The result of the AEU study in December 2016 showed that Indonesia Food Sustainability Index or FSI was ranked as 60th above China, the United States, India, and others. Agriculture is vulnerable to climate change and a source of greenhouse gas or GHG. Farmers face pressure to adopt farming system to be more resilient in the face of increasing variable weather adoption and reduce GHG production or mitigation. But actually, for the world's leading agribusiness, climate change is the both of threats and opportunity. The threat, of course, is the uncertainty of crop growing condition and that supply chain will not be able to adopt and deliver seeds, pesticides, and fertilizer input where and when they can be sold. Uncertainty about the impact of climate change will further increase production risks faced by the agriculture sector. Agriculture also contributes significantly to greenhouse gas emissions that cause climate change. 70% directly to agriculture's activities and addition 7 to 14 to land use change. While the opportunities obtained by climate change are energy conservation in existing infrastructure in development countries and the integration of resource efficiency in the construction of new agribusiness commercial in emergency market. Other research results also that when climate change occurs, including global warming, there is an increase in the crop productivity due to the fertilization effect caused by an increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and expansion of the are available for tropical and or subtropical crop production. The result of research conducted by Money and ATC Group state the uncertainty in the crop growth condition and change in the supply chain operation can be carried out through theoretical solution for agribusiness. The traditional genetics response has been to scale up research to diversity plant and livestock species and to adopt other input where necessary. Alternative agribusiness can opt for a different type of diversification, expanding their limited budget and to the treasury of crops and livestock to more markets on the assumption then that they will have enough variety or handling diversity through time and space to grow something without disturbing the process of food or feed and retailers. The Sustainable Development Goals have become an international program and have been adopted by almost all countries in the world. All institutions at various levels and sectors in each country have a development program to support and accelerate the achievement of the 17 SDGs goals, including higher education as an institution. Universities are the leading actor in the success of achieving the SDGs in Indonesia because they have the text of education future leaders as well as other SDGs actors such as NGO and development institutions through knowledge transfer, research, and innovation. Professor and Chair of Indonesian Climate Council, Professor Insinyur Rahmat Witoelar, said the 95% of disasters in Indonesia are caused by climate change and environmental damage. Climate change that occurs in the Earth surface in the coastal area to have a strong meteorological effect. University play a key role in improving the quality and quantity of research in Indonesia, especially regarding climate change and sustainability development. Moreover, university as painter of the nation's future future youth are the strategy place for parks at the nation future mentally so that they are able to understand and dare to voice the concern for climate change. The active role of university is expect to the catalyst for the involvement of for other non-government actors in the supporting the implementation of the SDGs in Indonesia. University through the Indonesia are expected to also play an activities role like this in the success in achieve the SDGs. Thus, the synergy will be performed between the central regulatory government and all the government elements that can accelerate and facilitate an achievement of the SDGs in Indonesia. Most humans consider climate change to be a distant problem that will not affect them personally. The World Health Organization as the conducts the climate change that are occurs since the might in has a constant the might has caused more than 150,000 deaths each year. Each year and 5 million disability just life years or the ALY, mainly in developing countries. There is an evidence-based epidemiological research that suggests climate sensitive disease, including health-related mortality or morbidity, disease related to air pollution, infection disease, especially in those transmitted indirectly to water or by insects or others rodents factor, and research health problem related for forced population migration to people mental health. However, the landscape change can significantly affect a local region. More actually, the long-term climate change in the land cover can affect microclimate conditions, including temperature, transpiration, and surface runoff, which are biodeterminant of the emergency and many infection diseases. Whilst public health is a necessary component of our socio-economic stability and a key aspect of Indonesia SDGs, health is not only a single figure in the SDGs program. There are many SDGs programs that intersect with health including reducing poverty, contributing to economic growth, strengthening labor productivity, building a more just society, and responding to the needs for gender equality. Climate change affects aspects including social, cultural. Climate change is closely related to person and global inequality. The most vulnerability peoples bear the brunt of the impact of climate change, but contribute the less to the crisis. As the impact of climate change escalates, millions of vulnerable people face greater challenge in terms of extreme event, health effects, food security, electrical security, water security, and cultural identity. Infection disease, including the climate-driven COVID-19 pandemics, have shown the marginality groups often lack access to the service, resource, and information desk. Geographic context. The root cause of their vulnerability lies in combination of their geographic context, their financial, social, economic, culture, and gender status, and their access to service, decision-making, and justice. Poor and marginalized groups raise the voice to call for more ambitious action against climate change, discrimination, on other global issues. Climate change is more than just an environmental crisis. It's a social crisis and is the first us to address inequality on many levels between rich and poor countries, between rich and poor within the countries, between men and women, and between the generation. The most vulnerable are often displaced disproportionately affected by the cost of taking climate change. In the absolute well-designed and inclusion policy, climate change in mitigation measures can place at a higher financial burden on poor households. For example, policy and expense of public transportation or carbon pricing could lead of higher public transportation fares, which could have more of an impact of poor household. Likewise, if not handled with the care, limited forestry activities to certain time of the year can be impact for indigenous purposes depend of forest or the year for their livelihoods. In addition to addressing in the economic distribution impact or decarbonization, there is also a need to understand and other aspect of social, cultural, and political economic inclusion, including agreeing on the type of transaction needs, economic, social, and etc., and identifying opportunity to address social inequality in this process. While much progress has the main of the science and a type of policy needs to support the transition of low carbon and climate resilient development. The challenge facing many countries in the agency citizens who manage to understand climate change and gathering support from those who worry that really will be affected unfairly by climate policy. It is critical that people brought into the decision-making process needs transparency, access to information, as citizen engagement on climate risk, and let go to create coalition of public support on demand to reduce climate impacts and to address behavioral and political inertia for this decarbonization, as well as the generating new ideas and ownership of solution. In addition, communities bring unique perspective, skill, and wealth of knowledge to the challenge of strengthening resilience and tackling climate change. They should be involved as partners of building resilience that the sampling by seen as beneficiaries, research, and experience, so the community leaders can set priorities, influence ownership, and design and implement an investment program. There are responsive to needs of their own communities. Innovation in climate finance and architecture can connect marginalized communities and group to the high level policy. Technical and financial assistance then they need for locally relevant and advantage development impacts. Sustainable development is to pay attention to multidisciplinary consideration in dealing with as the wealth of creating opportunities in the trend of climate change. I will try to review Indonesia multidisciplinary SDG development strategy in this issue of climate change after looking at various perspectives. In agribusiness studies, many research provide recommendation of climate change reform the international and national and sector level on correct, misaligned, incentives and direct policy efforts towards specific investment in the just innovation, a pursuit of the explicit goal of addressing threat and increasing opportunities from the climate change of phenomenon. At the international level, it is necessary to strengthen the implementation of the International Climate Change Conference or COP 2021, both the text and the country level strategy for emission reduction, including in the form of intended international nationally determined contribution of NDCs, recognize the threat climate change, sustainable good food production, and offer an opportunity price for agriculture and the food chains to be an active part of climate change solution. Indonesia itself needs to strengthen its wider social, economic, and environmental policy, such as trade, investment, infrastructure, and education policy, such as trade, investment, infrastructure, and education policy that must consistently support sustainable productivity growth in a combination with the effort to adopt and mitigation the threat of climate change. So far, we have seen that consistent implementation of regulation of contradictory signal, such as import reduction that protect water intrinsic costs and exacerbates poverty by farmers, improving overall policy coherence will be more effective that marginal five turning of exciting agricultural policy. In addition, countries need to help maximize the opportunity of integration of resource efficiency in the commercial construction of a new agribusiness of the market and the conservation of energy generated by climate change for agriculture benefit. Taking sorry. Okay. Talking about a climate crisis, especially in a COVID-19 pandemic, requires a quick and accurate response from various parties, including universities. Various studies have been carried out, but in terms to their relevance to the needs in the there, including university, various studies have been carried out, but in the terms of their relevance to the needs in the fields and the speed with which they reach to the community so that they can be released into benefit. It really needs to be improved. The low value of the community service element and tridharma is one the obvious to the role of university. In fact, the climate crisis is one of the important issue that must be explored an innovation solution for the in order to help avoid this and create opportunities to hone the quality development of Indonesia human resource to quality research. Yes, University Counselor and former Direction General of Higher Education, Professor Dr. Fasli Jalal, stated the higher education is one of the strategic doors in adapting to climate change. Universities should provide a number of research fund the research with the priority of SDGs, issue including climate change. The provision of the test product is expected to encourage research from various fields of science to participate in effort to reduce global warming to climate change. Professor of Environment, Professor Dr. Emil Salim said that to deal with the problem of climate change, various parties for various disciplines must be involved. So the strategy that needs to be carried out from the phenomenon of climate change is one, strengthening priority research of SDGs, especially in dealing with climate change in order to tackle the threat of climate change as well as the opportunity based phenomenon and the products research and innovation products research and innovation products for Indonesia and the world. To optimizing community service by university, especially in the handling climate change and implication for society and isolation. 3. Increase the role of student determinant of the country's future in honing knowledge as well of offering the tools that have been inputted by university and community. Okay. Is the public health strategy. We have a strategy in one, development of the health program in climate change adoption. 2. Increase access to the basic public health service at DPTK, flying healthcare, mobile hospital. 3. Improve the health surveillance system to monitor the spread of diseases such as COVID-19, malaria, and dengue fever. 4. Immediately realize the adaptive and mitigation effort of the health sector roadmap in line with the effort of other sector, but in accordance with specific local condition, strengthening disaster management system in anticipating the direct impact of climate change, including early disease surveillance. The application of bin hospital needs to be applied to every hospital and industry. Okay, this is sociocultural strategies is a policy maker based to recognize the role of social capital in effective dismantle regulation, needs the creative mechanism of new media, engagement, rapid socialization, community, and collaboration. by embracing technological advantage to encourage participation in mitigation and adoption from the bottom up, so the local leaders are transforming exciting and rapidly evolving social skill into successful, adaptive, and action capacities. Political discourse on climate change must consider bottom-up and top-down models. It is only through a balanced medium of interaction that innovative approach to mitigation adaptation can occur. Okay, I'm back to argumentation strategy. Argumentation climate change is the 80s business argumentation climate change adoption strategy by world scientists. One, efficient irrigation management, renewable energy, organic practice, improving soil health, keeping agriculture green, reducing livestock methane emission, then salt-based livestock management, and protecting agricultural land. Okay, conclusion is that climate change has one but threats and opportunities that needs to be explored. Agribusiness, higher education, and public health as sociocultural perspective are considered factors in implementing the SDGs program, including climate change, adoption, and mitigation. The solution offered by each perspective can be go hand in the hand and support the resilience of the head nation in the process of sustainable development of the SDGs, including dealing with the phenomenon of climate change. Finally, I would like to finish this presentation with a brief or inspiring, wonderful quote for the late Professor Iwan Wiprasto from Faculty Medicine, Public Health and Nursing Research of Gadjah Mada. There are no smart people. There are people who want to read and try to become what they have dreamed of. Thank you for listening and for our presentation. I hope what I have shared will be beneficial for all of us. I'm sorry for my poor presentation and poor English. I'm very, very sorry for that. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good morning and stay healthy.